Welcome to Equilibrium Echoes, the podcast where we delve into the transformative power of your inner world on your relationships. I'm your host, Alyssa Decker. Join me as we unlock the secrets of emotional equilibrium and dig deep into the tools and insights needed to foster healthier, more fulfilling relationships in ways that feel safe and authentic. Welcome back to Equilibrium Echoes. I'm your host, Alyssa Decker, and today we are talking about emotional resilience. I think this is a fascinating topic, and I think it's not one that I understood very well for a long time, and I'm guessing that some of you listening may not understand it fully either. And so the purpose of today's show is really to help us all understand what emotional resilience is, how it shows up in our lives, how it shows up in our relationships. And here to do that is Fleur. She is an emotional resilience coach. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for hosting me. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about this conversation. Why don't we start by you just giving us a little bit of your background and how it is that you learned about emotional resilience and became an emotional resilience coach?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think that anyone who does this kind of work, there's always a story where you learn the hard way, right? Sometimes the best lessons that you learn have to be like visceral, embodied lessons, not from a book or from something else. They're from your own hard-learned experience. So my
Yes.
background, I started years ago. I was a teacher. I used to teach English to speakers of other languages. Then I went and trained as a therapist, and I worked for a very long time in the domestic abuse sector. So I worked predominantly on perpetrator programs. I helped with teenagers who'd experienced domestic abuse in the home or adverse childhood experience. So I had a lot of like knowledge around developmental and relational trauma. And I loved the job. I absolutely like felt like I was making a huge impact. But what I didn't realize was that it was massively burning me out because I am an empath, a really sensitive person. I'm an introvert, and I was brilliant at taking care of everybody else, but never myself. But I thought I was fine. And then basically one day, yeah,
Yes. So do we all until we're not.
yeah, totally. Yeah, we're all like, yeah, we're fine. I'm fine. I'm doing fine. And then suddenly I wasn't. And I basically burnt out really dramatically. This was like over 8 years ago now, but I collapsed one day after months of having like fatigue, and I couldn't figure out why. I was eating well. I had meaningful work. I had everything on paper was like amazing. I had no drama in my life. And I basically collapsed. I ended up in a neurology unit in hospital. I wasn't able to walk, couldn't stand, couldn't wait there. I was just a mess, basically. And I was signed up
Mm.
for 6 weeks. And in that time, just everything kind of unraveled for me. And it took me on a journey that shouldn't really take 8 years to sort of recover from. But it took me on a massive journey where I was desperate to find answers. I wanted to like be able to be strong within myself and to support others. But I tried everything from psychedelics to more therapy to Vipassana silent meditation retreats to traveling to you name it. I tried it all looking for that silver bullet. And it never came. And that's really kind of what led me to helping people regarding their emotional resilience, their confidence, because it doesn't have to take you 8 years and it doesn't have to take you a really scary episode of temporary paralysis to realize that you're on the wrong path in life.
Mm, yes. Yes, much better if we can figure that out a little earlier.
Yeah.
So, why don't you define for us emotional resilience and kind of give us a foundation of what we're talking about when we use those words?
Yeah, so really, I think one of the cornerstones is adaptability, it's flexibility, like a resilient nervous system and a resilient person emotionally is somebody who knows how to dance with life. It's about flow. So resilience to me is not about being tough. Like my surname comes from the Greek word sclera, meaning rigid or hard, right? And I always thought that being resilient meant being like having a strong upper lip, like being tough, like not letting things bother you. That is not what resilience is. It's not about being strong. Resilience is actually a lot to do with the bounce factor. It's being able to bounce with situations, to dance with life like a palm tree in the storm. It doesn't fight the wind, it dances with it. That is to me what resilience is. It's not about being knocked off balance because anyone can be. It's very much about how you roll with the punches and how you bounce back and how you redefine them and how you make it work for yourself.
Mm, that's fascinating. Okay, so give us an example of a scenario, either from your life or even a hypothetical one, of what it looks like to have emotional resilience versus what it looks like when we don't.
So when I can give you an example from my life. So I thought I was really emotionally resilient. All I was doing was suppressing my emotions, rationalizing them away because that is what I'd been taught to do in childhood. So you think that you're okay, but really all you're doing is creating more and more physical tension in your body and in your mind. So you basically tell people you're fine, but really you're not feeling fine. And you might even have physical symptoms which you choose to ignore, things like IBS flare ups, or you might have skin flare ups, or you might have chronic fatigues. All these things, your body is always talking to you. So that is what it looks like when you're not emotionally resilient. Your body will speak to you, it will give you all sorts of signals.
Mm-hmm.
Self will feel out of alignment in some way. Some way you will feel like you're just not settled, you're not happy. That can come out with like sleepless nights, anxiety. That is when you're not emotionally resilient. You're denying a lot of things and you're suppressing. And I was doing that very, very much. I was like, I'm fine. Everything's great. I have a perfect life. When you are emotionally resilient, you're a realist. You're really honest about what's happening. That doesn't mean you don't want pity or being patronized. You are honest about what is happening in your life. You're true
Mm,
to yourself. So you're like, actually, this is a really hard moment. This is dark times. I'm going through the hard right now.
mm.
But that doesn't mean that you're a weak person. You know, our vulnerability is like such an important cornerstone of our resilience, and it's really where our humanity lies. If you don't embrace your vulnerability, then it's really hard to be emotionally resilient.
Yes. And that emotional vulnerability, that really starts with what happens in our internal narrative, doesn't it? Because we think, that really catches my attention because I don't think very often we think of that there's a need to be vulnerable with ourselves.
Mhm.
And yet, what I just heard you say is if you are not admitting to yourself the reality of the situation, um, you're causing a lot of problems for yourself. And that really is, that's kind of where that, how am I trying to say this? Um, that admitting to yourself what's really going on is a form of being vulnerable with yourself, isn't
Mhm.
it? So why do we do that? Why are we so resistant to even admitting to ourselves what's really going on?
Because I think we're all kind of just a little approval addicts. We trade our authenticity for approval, and we learn that from a very, very
Mm,
young age. Because actually, there's a lot of shame and negative feelings around negative emotions. So, if you're feeling, no one's ever like, oh my God, you're so joyful. Like, oh, you really need to tone that down. You are so, no one ever like feels shamed for like feeling, happy and positive. But there's so much shame around negative emotions. We don't want to be a burden to other people. We don't want other people to pity us. That's something that particularly a lot of people who've experienced significant developmental and relational trauma that I've worked with, one thing they cannot stand is the pity party. They don't
mm,
want that because all it does is it compounds their feelings of powerlessness. So
mm-hmm.
there is a lot of there's a lot of like difficulty in just admitting, actually, I'm going through a really tough time. I'm going to be okay. I need you to understand that I'm going to get through it. But right now, it's really, really hard. And also, we're not taught to articulate to people what it is that we need. Like, do you want validation when you want to like rant? Do you want somebody to give you some advice? Do you need some practical support? Do you need someone just to hear you out without saying anything? If you're taught how to do these things and then you know your audience and you know who you can go to, it really helps to build that emotional resilience because you're like, okay, I'm feeling like this. This is what I need. This is where I can go. But these are not skills we're taught growing up. How to like manage our emotions and also how not to take responsibility for other people's emotions.
Oh yes, that's a big one because we tend to pile on ourselves even more than anyone else does, I think, right? Okay, so where do we start with all of this? Like if someone's listening and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's me. I probably got some work to do." Where does that even begin?
How does it begin? Really understanding that all your emotions are just signals. It's just an emotion is simply energy in motion. It will pass. You don't have to like do anything. One of my favorite quotes from Soren Kierkegaard, who was a Danish philosopher, he said, "Life cannot be cured. It can only be managed." And it's the same with our emotions. You don't cure yourself of anger. It's not like people who are monks or gurus or they don't feel the negative emotions because they've reached this really elevated level. No, of course not. So, really, it starts with understanding that whatever you're feeling is just, it starts as a sensation and it will have accompanying thoughts and it will have those feelings. And as I say to people all the time, the only way to heal it is to feel it.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Don't run away. Don't suppress. Sit with it. Sit with it. Sit with it. Observe it because you have emotions. You are not your emotions. You have thoughts. You are not your thoughts. And I'm not sharing this from the lofty pulpit of enlightenment where I never get angry, I never get sad. I'm saying this as a very like real, raw, vulnerable human being who is not immune to life's vicissitudes and you cannot escape your humanness. So to recap, sit with it. Just sit with whatever you're feeling. Don't run away from it and it will flow through you. And there will be some kind of lesson in it, but don't jump to the lesson too quickly because that teaches you to rationalize it away. Sit,
Mm.
feel all the feelings. It's uncomfortable, but the storm will pass.
Okay, I'm going to push you a little harder on this because I know there are people listening who are like me who are just spend years not being in touch with their feelings at all. And you say, just feel it and sit with it. And they're like, what in the world does that even mean? I mean, some of us have gotten to this place where we like have this surface, maybe a brief awareness that we're angry and then we just move right on, or we're hurt and we just move right on. So how do we actually do that? What does it even mean to sit with your emotions? Like break that down for us a little further for those of us who are so in the habit of kind of stuffing our emotions down and moving on.
Mm-hmm. It's really not that complicated. It's just one of those things that when you're so used to like having a default and running away from what you feel, it's kind of like it's counterintuitive because you just want to not feel those feelings, right? But
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that you feel, like every single day, this is not just about like doing it when you're going through hard times. Every single day, just checking in with yourself. Literally just for like 30 seconds, 1 minute, you just simply close your eyes and you check where you're at. And that you do this periodically throughout the day. Where am I at? Where's my vibe at? You don't have to label the like really granular emotion, which is what a lot of people train you to do. They're like, what is it? Is it loneliness? Is it sadness? You don't have to do that. You can just check the vibe that you have. Are you feeling quite like riled up? Is there a lot of like jittery energy, which suggests there's sort of like an excess of energy that you're in hyper mode? Or are you in more in hypo mode? Are you more kind of like down, flat? Or are you kind of balanced? You can check in with yourself. So that's a daily practice regularly. You don't have to do anything, you just observe, nothing else. And then when you're feeling an emotion like that's quite negative and that's quite intense, just literally take yourself out of like any other stimulus around the environment, even if you just have to go to the bathroom for like a few minutes and just notice and like maybe you can label the emotion, maybe you can't. But whatever it is, maybe you're just feeling tension. Maybe it's a sound and you just want to be like blah or gah. Like maybe it's that describes it. You don't have to find the perfect word. It is just about observing what sensations you have. Maybe there's like tightness in your shoulders. Maybe you've got some specific thoughts that you have. Remember that you are not your thoughts or your emotions. You simply have them. They pass through you. It's a skill and it takes time. It's not as simple as like you do it, but that is really how basic it is.
Hmm.
It's
So when we're doing some of this, we're starting to become more in tune with our emotions and our bodies. Um, what happens next? Because I think for a lot of people, I'm guessing, you tell me because you're the one that coaches on this, but I'm guessing for a lot of people, when you start paying attention to your emotions and becoming in tune with them, it brings up a lot of stuff that you haven't addressed and haven't dealt with.
Mhm.
So what happens next? Like, what, I can see someone listening to this thinking, yeah, if I start paying attention to all those emotions, like I'm going to start crying and never stop, or I'm going to be angry all the time, or I'm going to, like, we have all these fears about
Hmm.
what is going to happen if we change this dynamic and we start becoming more in tune with our emotions. So talk to me a little bit about that. What does that look like?
So for me, I think that's a really common fear. Like if I feel all these feelings, if I allow myself to really go to the depths, that's it. It's going to be like a volcano or a tsunami. It's going to take me away, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
never going to be okay. Like that's it.
Yes.
Actually, your emotions are just they are just biochemical sensations in your body and with accompanying thoughts. They won't harm you. What harms us is the suppression of our emotions. We won't get carried
Mm-hmm.
away. There is so much that we can do to regulate ourselves. I have four kind of cornerstones that I kind of touch base with depending on where I'm at. One is stillness, and stillness could be meditation, time in nature, just having a digital detox, but it's where I take away a lot of the stimulus, particularly as a highly sensitive person. Like I can get overwhelmed very easily. So, stillness, we all need to have a moment of stillness, whether it's just watching the rain out the window without anyone talking to you for a moment, just a moment of calm, stillness, movement. We were born to walk, born to move. Like we are born to move around. So that could be going for a walk, it could be, exercise, it could be having a really good declutter, but movement is integral as well. It helps to shift energy and it helps to clear stuff out in the same way that stillness helps to calm the waters. The other one is creativity, and it doesn't have to be anything like artistic, but we are all creators, natural creators. So what any way that you can express your creativity, whether it's through journaling, whether it's through doing some artwork, whether it's puzzles, and the other one is connection. And this is really, really important because you connect to yourself and you can help yourself to regulate through breath work, through somatic work, feeling what's going on with your body. But the other factor is sometimes we get so overwhelmed by life that we actually need some other human being to help us to regulate. So we can't do it all on our own. And I think that one of the things that we have a lot in society is it's like we're shamed around this whole, like, you need to be stronger, you need to be better, you need to like cope better. Actually, we're all human and we can't get through life without each other. As Audrey Hepburn said, the best thing to hold on to in life is each other. And sometimes that's what you need.
Yes. Yes, I have a best friend that I call all the time when I'm feeling upset or just, and it's really interesting because we've been friends long enough now that there's this pattern of she's going through something, and most of the time when she's going through something and calling me to help her process it, I'm not, thankfully. And then the roles kind of flip. But we do need these people
Mm,
to help us, whether that's a professional therapist or coach, or whether that's just a really good friend who can listen and stay regulated. I think that's the key, right? Is
mm,
I know how to stay regulated when she's not, and she knows how to stay regulated when I'm not, rather than allowing each other to, like, allowing her to cause my dysregulation. It's the opposite effect. There's a really fascinating study. I'm sure you've probably seen it about how mothers regulate their infants'
mm,
nervous systems.
mm.
And that really can continue. Like, that's why you're in the presence of certain people and you just feel really calm because they are regulated and it helps your nervous system to regulate.
Mhm.
So how do we find those people? Like, if you're thinking, I don't have anybody in my life like that. How do we find those people and how do we know if they are the kind of person that can help us with this?
Well, I think, your nervous system never lies, right? It's about tuning into that. Like very often, particularly when you've experienced quite significant relational developmental trauma in your life, you get cut off, basically. Your head gets kind of cut off from the body and you don't trust your intuition and then what's called neuroception, your body's feedback signals. So it's not an easy ride. It can be tricky, but your nervous system will always tell you when you feel safe. You don't need to overthink that. You know when you feel safe. How do you find these people if you don't have any? It's a tricky one. There will be somebody, and I always say to people, like, there's always somebody out there who cares. You might try going to like a class, like an art class. It doesn't even have to be like a therapy group or a yoga class. You could try going to, yeah, like art spaces, creative spaces are often very healing spaces,
Mm-hmm.
and see how you feel. You might not find the perfect person the immediate time, and you might bump into somebody in the park regularly. My sister, actually, she often has very profound conversations with total random strangers. She doesn't even know their name. She'll often be like, "Oh yeah, that's the woman with the Alsatian. That's Alsatian girl." Like, I don't know her name, but they'll have really deep conversations. And she's like, "You know what? It's really good because we're not like connected. It's not a profound thing, but we meet each other's needs in that moment." So yeah,
Yeah.
you can meet someone on a bus, you can meet someone in a class, you could have a random extended family member. It's tricky to sort of say where you're going to find these people, but they are everywhere. They really, really are. They're a regulated people, and if you carry the belief that by and large humanity is kind and good, and we are hardwired literally in our nervous systems to want to help other human beings, you will find those people. And you'll make
I love
mistakes
that.
along the way, but it will happen. You'll meet good.
Yes. And the more you journey down this path and do this work, the more you can be that person for someone else as well.
Absolutely.
So, we've talked a lot about emotional regulation on this podcast, but since it's come up several times, give us a couple of your favorite tips for helping to regulate yourself.
So, as I said, I have my four cornerstones, but one of the things that I'm really interested in is in polyvagal theory, and that sort of understanding that our nervous system doesn't just have like two states, it's got different states and also hybrid states. So, it's understanding when you are in your sympathetic mode, that's in your fight or flight. So, often you will have like symptoms, there will be signals. For me, it's when I get to-do list mania, when I start speaking really, really quickly and I'm like really, really hurried. I know that I'm regulated and I'm in sympathetic mode. I'm not really thinking straight. I'm rushing around. I might get kind of like quite jittery. So again, everybody will have different like signals, but generally when you're feeling like overcharged, and again, tuning into yourself, into like what habits, what behaviors, what emotions, it can help you to sort of figure out, oh, okay, I'm like in a little bit of excess mode. Or you have the flip side, you're kind of like block, freeze, fawn, which is your dorsal vagal mode. That's when you're kind of lethargic and your thoughts are kind of like, oh God, what's the point in anything? It's just all exhausting, exhausting, and you have no energy and you can't be bothered. So again, just being mindful of that and just watching yourself. It's not good or bad. It's just recognizing it. And this is what I do regularly. That's what I talk about earlier when I said about checking in with yourself. And then we have our
Mhm.
social engagement system, our ventral vagal system, where we're feeling compassionate and open. And we're like, hey, actually, life is pretty cool. And like, we all have these days. Some of us have them more than others, but we have them. And you want to connect with other people. So just those are the things that I tune into, my like signals of where I'm at. Also be sensitive, particularly if you're a woman and like you have your monthly cycle. Even if you don't anymore, we don't follow like the solar cycle where every day we have the same charge of energy like the sun. We follow a lunar cycle, so we have periods in the month where we are more energetic and periods where we go more inward and we need to reflect. So honor those as well. Like every single day is different. Don't compare yourself to yesterday. Don't compare yourself to idealized versions of yourself or other people. So those are some of the things that I do, and I make sure that I get my needs met. So I would really invite your listeners to sort of think about the things that help to regulate you. For me, it's being in nature, it's journaling, it's being able to sort of meditate and have my yoga practice as well. It's very, very important for me to keep myself grounded. So
Mm.
it could be anything for you that brings you joy, that keeps you
Mm.
did.
I love that. Like so often we're so focused, and we've talked about this already, but we're kind of coming full circle here. We're so focused on taking care of everyone else.
Hmm.
I have a lot of women who come into coaching with me, and they've completely lost sight of what they even enjoy or what they love because they've been so focused for so long on everyone else's needs. And I think that's such an important part. We miss that sometimes, how important that pursuit of things that you love is connected to emotional regulation, but it very much is. And so I think that's really interesting because I don't know if I've ever considered that in that context before, but I love that. All right. So tell me, give me a couple of examples of success, not, I hate the word success, of wins that you have had or your clients have had, like really practical examples of how does this emotional resilience work show up in our everyday lives? Like, how does how do our interactions with other people change? How
Hmm.
do our daily activities change when we start becoming more emotionally resilient?
Yeah, I love this question. And I'll give you some examples as well, because I think it's really important to have like tangible examples to sort of follow up on these things. But the thing is this, and I always used to say this when I work with men in group, who are often like perpetrators of domestic abuse, and they'd never stop to think about this. And I often say that the quality of the communication that you have with yourself determines the quality of the relationships around you. The quality of the
Mm.
relationships that you have in your life determines the quality of life itself, because life is about relationships, but it starts with you. And so I had a client recently, and with a lot of anxiety, also going through menopause, lots of stuff coming up. Again, a very highly sensitive person. And, she was like, I don't get this whole sitting with it thing. Like, do I just sit with it? But she did. She really like committed to observing her emotions without getting carried away with them, without attaching a story to them, and started doing like a little bit of inner child work. And she said, actually, I realized that I was feeling, can't be bothered to do my assignment. I'm really tired. I'm feeling really, really angry. I'm feeling really sorry for myself. I don't know why, but that's okay. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit in front of the television and I'm just going to watch Netflix under the blanket with my cat. And I'm just going to chill out because I just can't do that right now. And I've never allowed myself to do that because I've always felt guilty and I've shamed myself. And now I'm not. And so my anxiety started to go down because I'm actually starting to respond to my needs. So it's
Mm.
kind of like a very practical example, but these are the subtle shifts that happen. And you notice that because it's not like some booming thing. You suddenly notice that you behave differently in a situation that in the past would have like shame spiraled you, or would have triggered you, or you would have like been thrown off balance by, and you respond differently. And you're like, ooh, woof, that's growth. Like I'm doing something different.
And I did that and it was okay and the world didn't fall apart and nobody died and I feel better. Yeah. Can you give us another example? I love these practical examples because I think it really illustrates for people what we're aiming for here in doing this work.
Yeah, totally. So I can give you another example of my own as well. So I recently went through like an emotional storm. Can't fight it. We cannot avoid our humanness. Some things that have really came up for me, and I was like, okay, this is what's happening. I'm not going to be able to write this article that I really wanted to write. I just had to go and sit in nature and sob and journal and feel the feelings, just feel them. I was like, I'm not going to sit here and analyze and try and figure out what I need to do. I just sat for about a good hour and I sobbed and I journaled and I listened to the music that was going to make me cry. And this is very important as well because music can be incredibly healing, just allowing yourself to feel these feelings. And afterwards, I felt a little bit better, but I was like, it's not over yet. And I'm still scattered. So I'm going to do things that are low rent activities. So I'm not going to like do anything really intense. So I've got some boring admin that I can do, which will distract my mind. Distraction is a great thing as well. Again, when you learn how to sort of regulate yourself, doesn't mean you have to like go and hide under the duvet. You can do stuff, but like I said, just keep it low rent so you're not taxing your brain and nervous system. So I went off and did that. And then the following day I checked in and I was like, okay, the storm isn't over yet. The weather forecast is still looking pretty stormy for the rest of the week. A bit unpredictable, but I've made it through the worst of it. I still managed to achieve something, not the things that I wanted to do, but I've actually not piled more pressure on myself by saying, you should be doing this and you just should all over yourself. Don't do that to yourself. Like,
Hmm.
learn to be kind and you actually progress. And instead of the storm lasting a month, it was over in about 5 days. So,
Yeah. Yeah, we prolong the pain
yeah.
sometimes by trying to push through it or to not address it, don't we?
Yeah, what you resist persists and it will just keep getting tighter and tighter and stronger. And that's why I say you have to learn how to dance with it, as uncomfortable as it is. But that's
Hmm.
the only way out is through.
Yes. And do you think that when we have these emotional storms, I love that illustration, by the way, of like the weather forecast. That's amazing. When we have these storms, is
Mm.
there always something underneath that? Like, is there always some kind of pain or trauma that needs to be dealt with? Or is it sometimes just a cycle?
Cycle. I think, I think sometimes as human beings, we love to complicate life. We love to complicate everything. And I think one of the things, particularly that I learned from working with people who've experienced trauma and from my own personal experience as well, is that don't wear it as a badge of honor. Not everything has to be analyzed. You do not have to work through every single trigger, every single quirk, every single random thing. Like sometimes there's just going to be weird stuff about you that you're like, this is me. I don't have to like, have it all figured out. Sometimes you'll have an emotional storm, and it could be because, your gut's a mess. Maybe you've been traveling, or maybe you've just had a bit of a weird diet. And obviously, there's a massive connection between the mind and the gut. Maybe it's because you've not been sleeping. Maybe it's just old stuff that's come up from the past. You can analyze it, you cannot analyze it. Sometimes you just have to like let it flow. And then sometimes dawning realizations will come to you. And other times you're like, oh, that was just a little bit of a storm. Storm in a teacup. Who knew what that was about? But it's over.
Yes.
Don't cling on to things. We prolong it when you cling.
Mm. And I think we could prolong it when we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to figure it out too. Would
Yeah.
you say that's true?
Yeah, totally. Sometimes you want to analyze everything, but you can end up actually like thwarting yourself with analysis paralysis. What does this
Hmm.
what does this mean? And what about this? If things come to you, like realizations come to you that move you forward, then you can take those lessons and move them forward, and that's gold. But if it's just weird emotions and you just don't know and you're all over the place, it's okay. Don't overcomplicate it and don't should all over yourself. I should know this, I should be better, or I shouldn't be upset. Just let it go. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't overcomplicate life.
Should and fine are two words that I think we use way too much. Maybe we should start limiting those in our vocabulary. Okay, so give us your top 3 tips for someone who struggles with emotional resilience. We've talked about a lot of things, but let's kind of narrow it down to like here are the 3 top takeaways if you struggle with emotional resilience.
So number one, I think, is connection. So seek out connection because we are social beings, particularly if you've been through really rough times and your ability to trust in other human beings and in yourself is hard. Seek out connection and trust your nervous system. You know who you feel safe around. You cannot get through life on your own. You can do so much to self regulate, but connection is really, really important. That's like, yeah, that's really important. You don't even have to talk to other people about the problems or about the feelings. You sometimes just feel better for just hanging out with other people who kind of get you, however they are, however weird or quirky, but connection. Yeah, don't
Mhm.
run away from human beings. You cannot get through life on your own. I think that's a really, really important thing. The other one is learn to give these emotions space. Don't fear them. When you feel the sensation, when you feel the negative emotion, when you feel the tears coming up, when you feel the tension, just feel it. It's uncomfortable. It's ugly. I get that. It's horrible when you're actually in the eye of the storm, but it will pass. and make sure that you don't allow yourself to get carried away. So feel the feelings, and then make sure that you either have someone that you go and talk to, or you have like a hobby that, or something that, whether it's like hanging out with your dog, whether it's being in nature, whether it's maybe you go and have a cleaning frenzy in your house. But again, sit with the emotions, but don't let them carry you away. So tip number 1 is connection. Tip number 2 is to sit with your emotions, but don't overly identify with them. And the final one, I think it comes back to what you were saying, Alyssa, about emotional regulation, doing what you love. You know, one of my favorite quotes from Barbara Shah is, what you love is what you are gifted at. There is no exception. And my sometimes people are like, I don't know what I love. I don't have a passion. It doesn't matter. You might love riding your bicycle. What makes you feel alive? And journaling about that question isn't like that helpful. What I find is literally asking someone else, like spontaneously, what that is for them. What makes you feel alive? And they will stop and they'll be like, oh, I don't know. But then it starts to come out. So doing the things that bring you joy, they don't have to be productive. They don't have to be part of a job. Doesn't have to be a hobby. But doing the thing that genuinely brings you joy, because when you feel that joy, whether it's walking the dog, whether it's, like I said, having a cleaning frenzy, whether it's artwork, your vibration will raise, your thoughts will be different, and you won't be focused on the emotional storm that you might be experiencing, because you'll be in the moment. So connection, learn to sit with your emotions, and doing what you love.
Awesome. I love those tips. I think all of us can do those things, at least get started on learning how to do those things. So tell us how people can connect with you. Tell us who you coach and how people can find you.
So if people want to connect, my website, it's my name, which is the greatest, easiest name to pronounce. It's fleursclarandis.com, but it will be in the show notes. And if I also have like a Substack, which is words-to-nourish-your-soul.com. So, and I write all about these things, sometimes with manifesting or confidence or emotional resilience, all sorts of things. So you can connect with me on either of those in Substack or via my website. Generally, I work with women who are highly sensitive, introverts, empaths, people who love to give to everybody else, love to help everybody else, and then kind of end up at the bottom of the pile. And they often come to me because they don't want to feel anxiety anymore. They want to deal with the overwhelm. They want to figure out what they're doing with their life. They want to live a life of purpose and passion, but without it costing them their sanity. So if any of that resonates and you're like, I want to find out a little bit more, you can also like stalk me as well. You don't have to like connect. You can just have a little look and so yeah, that's where you'll find me.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Fleur, for taking the time to have this conversation with us. I appreciate it. I think it'll be really helpful for a lot of people.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Alyssa. Hopefully there's some little nuggets for people to take away, and if not, just like planting a seed, something that you're like, something to think about. So, but yeah, wherever you're at in life, whatever you're going through, it is not like a reflection of what you're worth. Sometimes you go through times. The challenges are there to strengthen you, not to weaken you. So wherever you're at, you'll get through it. You're going to be okay. Reach out and know that you are worthy of being happy, and you are worthy of so much more than what you might think you are.
Oh, very encouraging. All right. Well, we will put all of Fleur's contact information in the show notes or in the video description if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Equilibrium Echoes. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Equilibrium Echoes. If you would like to learn more about the podcast, visit www.coachingwithalyssa.com/podcast. And while you're there, book your free consultation and download the preview of my new book, Marriage is Hard and Other Lies I Believed. I'll see you in the next episode.